Hello everyone, this is Satya Prakash. Welcome to my channel. This is part 31 of ASP.NET Web API. In this video, I'll show you how EnableCorsAttribute works. And in this video, I'll discuss few points. That is, what is EnableCorsAttribute and what happens in behind the scene when CORS or cross-origin resource sharing is enabled. So guys, I'll suggest you before going through this part 31, please visit my part 30 of ASP.NET Web API. That is, what is CORS in Web API and how to configure CORS in Web API. So guys, in this video, there is three scenarios. I'll show you in what scenarios is CORS enabled and what happens behind the scene when the CORS is enabled. Alright. So here it is my web API project and this is my application side or client side. Alright, and here I am getting my web API response, right? And this is the web API URL, and this is the output of my client application, that is employee.html. Alright, so to enable CORS in our controller, I have added one attribute here, right? Enable CORS attribute, and there is 3 stars. The stars nothing but it will show that first star is represents origins, second star is for headers, and third star is for methods. All right. So what I'll do here is I have implemented that this enable CORS attribute on the employee controller. That means we have given access to all the methods inside the employee controller, right? So the CORS is applied. So guys, what I'll do is I go to my fiddler here and we'll check the response and request as well. Before that, I need to remove this default URLs which is loaded here, right? And I need to run my client application, that is employee.html. So this is the output, and I'll go to my fiddler, and this is the response I'm getting, that is JSON1. I click this one, right? Okay, now you can see there is two sections here. This is the request header, request part, and the below one is the response part, right? And the request part will go here. There is one tab called raw, right? We'll click this one. So in the request origin header of fielder, that is a fiddler, the origin header sets to website URL issued the AJAX request, that is http localhost 59884, right? This is the URL of my domain of my client application. You can see here, right? Localhost 59884. So that request origin header is showing here in the fiddler of raw tab. And in the response of fiddler, if you'll click on the raw tab, right, we can see that one header is issued, that is access control allow origin, and it sets to star. That means it allow all the websites, right? So this star means it indicates that it allows access to any websites. There is no restrictions, so it will allow all the websites as well. So this is the scenario 1 for enable CORS attribute, right? So we'll check for scenario 2. So what will be the scenario 2 here is, so okay, now what I'll do is in the enable CORS attribute and in the origin part, right, that is the first star, I need to give access to only specific site. That is, for example, http://satya.com. all right, and we need to give slash here. So that means this enable CORS is applied to only this site, not all the sites, right? So once I done this one in enable CORS attribute of employee controller, I need to build my solution. The build is succeeded, right? And I need to run my web API application here. So here I map to my API controller to check the response. An employee controller, right? So this is my web API URL, that is port number is 49773. so this is the response I'm getting from API. So I'll go to my fiddler, will remove all these URLs and go to my client side, which is the employee.html. I need to refresh it. So I'm getting the error, right? So what is the error? To check it, we just right click on the browser, go to inspect element, and we'll select that console tab. So I'm getting the error, that is access to XML HTTP request for this URL is nothing but the API URL from origin has been blocked by CORS policy, and response to pre-flight does not pass access control check, and thus this issue is no access control allow origin header is present on the requested resource. That means the CORS is enabled only for this site, what I mentioned here, that is for http satya.com, but this CORS is not enabled for our client application, that is http localhost 510.884. That's what I'm getting that error, that is access control allow origin header is present on the requested resource and there is no access for this header. Alright, so in console of browser we send the request from HTML and we are getting the error response, that is no access control allow origin header is present on the requested resource, because the CORS is not enabled for our client application. Instead it will apply only for their specific site called satya.com. Alright, and we'll check one more scenario in our fiddler as well. So go to fiddler, we'll remove this, and again we need to refresh it, right? And now we'll go to the fiddler and click this one. Alright, and we'll go to raw tab. Okay, now guys, here you can see in the request header of origin, in request header origin of fiddler of raw tab, the request header origin sets to website URL issued the AJAX request, that is http localhost 59884. This is our client URL, right here. This is the client URL. Okay, but in the response of fiddler of raw tab, if you click on raw tab, right, we don't have access control allow origin header. You can see in the response we don't have that. The header is called no access the header is, that is access control allow origin header is not present in the response section, right? You can see there is nothing you can find this header name. Alright, so that's why security is preventing us from seeing the response we got back from the server, right? But you can see one more thing, guys. If you'll click on headers, but here we'll check one more thing. Okay, now this is check here. Okay, now we'll send one more request here. We'll just remove this line, remove all, go to our one more client application, right? So if you click on load employee, it will not show any data, because if you go to inspect element, and check on console, we are getting this error as well for this client application, right? emp.html. That means CORS is not enabled for our client application, right? So if we'll go to fiddler, and again we need to remove all, again go to my client application, refresh it, click on load employees, right? And we just check it response. Okay, response is works fine. And we'll go to our fiddler, we'll select this, go to raw tab of requested header. Okay, so okay, that it is not working, we just remove all. Again we'll go to our this API is working fine. Again we'll refresh our client application, click on load employees, we are getting error. Again go to fiddler, we'll select this, right? Go to raw tab of requested header, we are getting the origin header, that is our client URL. We'll go to raw tab of response. So guys, here I'm going to tell you that we got the 200 okay, but the origin header, that is access control allow origin, is not present, right, in the response header. That is because the security is preventing us from seeing the response we got back from the server. But here we are getting 200 status okay. That means the request is completed successfully, but it is the browser security is preventing us from seeing the data in the browser. So due to security reason, browser does not allow cross-domain AJAX request. So for cross-domain AJAX request, it is allowed this header, that is access control allow origin header in the response, right? So that is the thing we are getting from the scenario 2 of EnableCorsAttribute. So we'll check for last scenario or scenario 3 how EnableCorsAttribute in that particular situation. All right. So guys, here what I'll do is in section of our origin, we just replace it with our client domain, that is this one. So we'll just replace it with this one, right? In origin part of EnableCorsAttribute, we remove this slash. Okay, this is nothing but our client domain, right? So in origin we set our own domain, that is our client domain, not an external domain, right? So that means CORS is enabled for this our domain URL, or it is nothing but it is our client side URL, right? Here you can see for both the application. So here, after doing these changes, I need to save these changes and build our solution. So build is succeeded, run my API. So I'm getting a request from the employee controller, so that I map to API/employee controller in my API URL. So I'm getting the response in successfully, and we'll go to my client application. All right, and we just refresh it. So I'm getting the response as well, right? And I will go to the fiddler, remove all, and again we'll just refresh it our client application. All right, and we'll select this one, go to raw tab of our request header, right? So in the request origin header of fiddler, the origin header sets to website URL issued the AJAX request, that is http localhost 59884. This is our domain which we have set in our origin section of EnableCorsAttribute, right? So same way we'll check for raw tab of our of the fiddler on the response header, right? So in the response of fiddler, so access control allow origin, that is, you can see it's set to http localhost 59884. that is our client application, and we have set this URL in our EnableCorsAttribute in the section of origin, right? So in response header we are getting that access control allow origin set to http localhost 59884. that means CORS is applied to this to our domain. This is our client domain, right? So it indicates that it allows access to http localhost 59884. this is our domain name or client one. That's why we are getting the response in our client application, right? So this is all about the scenarios in that is for EnableCorsAttribute implementation in our controller, and how and what are the what is happening in behind the scene when the CORS is enabled for our application as well. All right, so we'll go to my presentation. So guys, EnableCorsAttribute, this is nothing but a class. It defines an attribute that can be applied to an action or a controller to enable CORS. By default, it allows all origins, methods and headers. Alright, and there is 3 points. When CORS is enabled, the browser sets the origin header of the request to the domain of the site making the request. The server sets the access control allow origin header in the response to either star or the origin that made the request. Star indicates any site is allowed to make the request. So guys, please subscribe and share my channel to get the updated knowledge on .NET, MVC, C#, SQL Server, Entity Framework, Azure and GitHub. So that's it for today guys. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.